The emotional journey of a grandfather who changed a boy's life. In a quiet, forgotten corner of North Carolina, nestled near the rolling Blue Ridge Mountains, lived a man named James Walker. At 70 years old, his life had been long, filled with joys, losses, and quiet routines. His small, weathered house stood surrounded by tall oaks and maples, their leaves whispering with the wind, much like memories whispering in James's mind. He had spent nearly all his life in this village, tending the land he inherited, raising two children with his late wife Susan, and surviving the slow erosion of time. Susan had passed away 10 years ago, leaving James in a silence so deep that even the birds seemed louder than the emptiness in his home. Every morning, James would sit on the wooden porch, a steaming cup of coffee in hand, watching the sun paint the mountains in shades of gold and purple. He spoke to no one but the echoes of the past, recounting silently the laughter of his children, the warmth of Susan's hand, the life he once had. He had grown used to solitude, and yet in the quiet of the morning, a part of him longed for the connection that had been lost. One late summer afternoon, James wandered down to the river that ran lazily behind his property. The water sparkled in the sun, and he could hear the soft rustle of the trees along the bank. There, struggling to catch fish, was a young boy named Liam, visiting for the summer with his grandmother. James watched him for a moment before approaching slowly. "Need a hand, son?" James asked gently. Liam looked up, startled, but nodded eagerly. Under James's patient guidance, Liam learned to cast the line, to wait with stillness, and to respect the river's rhythm. By the end of the day, the boy had caught his first fish, and James felt a warmth in his chest that had been absent for years. In the days that followed, James and Liam grew close. Liam, full of questions and curiosity, hung on James's every word as the old man shared stories of his youth, the day he met Susan at the county fair, the years of working the fields side by side, the laughter and tears that built a life. Liam listened with wide eyes, sometimes laughing, sometimes silent, absorbing each tale as if it were a treasure. One afternoon, as they watched the sun dip behind the mountains, James suddenly clutched his chest and fell to the ground. Panic surged in Liam, who called for help with a trembling voice. Neighbors arrived quickly, and paramedics stabilized him. At the hospital, the doctor explained that James's heart was fragile and that he needed to change his life, or the river of time would soon sweep him away. James returned home, weaker but alive, and for the first time in years, he felt the fragility of life in a tangible way. He realized that the past, beautiful as it was, could not sustain him alone. What mattered now were the living connections, the hands he could hold, the stories he could pass on, the love he could give and receive. From that day, James changed. He spent more time with Liam, teaching him not just about fishing, but about patience, integrity, and the quiet joy of watching the seasons shift. He reconnected with old neighbors, offering advice, help, and sometimes just a listening ear. The village began to rely on him, seeking his wisdom, and James found a new sense of purpose, a reason to wake up each morning beyond the memories of what was lost. Years passed. Liam grew into a thoughtful young man, yet he still visited James as often as he could. The old man, once defined by solitude, became the heart of the village. People came to call him the grandfather of the mountains, a title he wore humbly, yet with quiet pride. Even as his body grew frail, his spirit remained resilient, warmed by the laughter of children and the trust of the community. One evening, as the sun set in a blaze of pink and orange over the Blue Ridge, Liam sat beside James at the riverbank. "Grandpa," he asked softly, "are you happy?" James's eyes shimmered with tears, and a faint smile broke across his weathered face. "I am," he said. "I've learned that happiness isn't in remembering the past or fearing the future. It's here, in every hand we hold, every story we share, every life we touch. That is what makes a life worth living." And as the river flowed gently past, carrying the last light of day with it, James felt a profound peace. He had loved, he had lost, and he had found love again. Not in the past, but in the living connections that endured, shaping a legacy of kindness, wisdom, and enduring warmth. Even in the twilight of his life, James knew that the mountains would stand, the river would run, and he would leave behind something more lasting than time itself, a heart that had chosen to keep giving even when it ached.